podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Besson, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of the book, Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV, or on social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guest, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. So here today we have Lex McKee, and what we're going to talk about is what motivates you and how in turn that could actually make you avoid conflict. Hi Lex, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you, Sophie. How are you?
Good, thank you. So for the benefit of those people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, actually, it's a bit of a surprise for you because since we last had a chat, I've started an MSc in neuroscience with King's College.
I did notice that.
I quite fancy being Dr. Lex one day, maybe. As I'm approaching 60 now, I'm pushing my luck a bit. But hey.
And what's the aim once you've got that?
This is the psychology and neuroscience of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So because I do so much work with people who are suffering and hurting, I wanted to understand some of the chemical background behind this and some of the psychological background, because I don't have a professional background in that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a background in psychology, in training and development, even in theology. But to understand that rogue chemistry or maybe something happening amiss in the developmental stages, I mean, even the first bits I've done on this course just fill me with a sense of wonder. And this baby is this neural tube is formed and how the brain goes here and the gut goes there. What particularly got me excited is I'm pretty sure you'll be someone who'll believe in the law of attraction.
I do and I don't at the same time, interestingly enough.
That is fascinating.
Yeah.
I now know from my initial studies that neurons send out these tiny little molecules to the dendrites, the fingers of other neurons, to say, choose me, pick me. So the law of attraction, whether it's true or not in the spiritual sense, is definitely true. At the molecular sense, we send out these little signals.
I do agree with that, because I see, for instance, my parents were always obsessed with water leaks, and I've never known anybody having more water leaks than they had. Even the brand new house that they bought had a massive water leak. They had to redo the entirety of the underneath sort of thing.
They attracted it.
In the next breath, I sometimes struggle because, no one really wants to attract bad things. But I think that sometimes bad things actually have to happen in order for good things to happen in a sense, and to learn the lesson from that.
That's a very deep thought. I was thinking about, because I often pray for people. I've got lots of friends who are suffering at the moment with many, many challenges. And I'll say, I'll send up a smoke signal for you. And I speak very, very positively. So if someone's got cancer, one of my friends has got cancer, and you listen to their conversation, they'll talk about my cancer. And I go, no, it really isn't your cancer. It's a foreign body invading your temple. So with all the best will in the world, I can have a positive affirmation, speaking health into their bodies. But if they're going, well, my cancer has done this and my depression has done that,
yeah, I
am not lord over them. We believe what comes out of our own mouths, don't we?
Exactly.
So it's complex.
It's very complex.
Relationships.
But either way, let's go back to motivation for a minute. What is it exactly? How do you define motivation?
I define it as the fuel for the journey. So when you reward an employee, for example, there's a lovely example Steve Jones gives, who's one of the best motivational map practitioners. So James Sale and Steve Jones wrote one of the books, Motivating for Engagement, Motivational Mapping for Engagement. And Steve's got a wonderful corporate background, and he talks about one of his clients being punished by reward. So she had a very high friend motivator, what you and I would call social intelligence, interpersonal intelligence. And as part of her career success, they gave her that corner office with the door. And then she had her own space to think and develop the business, and her performance plummeted.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to be there. Not necessarily with her friends. It's an interesting descriptor, the friend. So a friend seeks belonging, friendship, fulfilling relationships. And to have the physical door, even if she left it open, and the barriers around her, de-energized her.
I think being in an open plan office, and despite the fact I'm probably, you know, in terms of motivation, I do need people around me. I actually found it really difficult because I couldn't hear myself think. And
Yes.
actually, for me, it's completely different. But once I was removed from the office, because I ended up with my own office, funny enough, for me it was better. But you do feel excluded because you're not part of it anymore. You're not part of the banter. You don't know what's happened, so to speak. So you are excluded from the group.
Yeah, they might be talking about you.
Exactly. Beware.
I mean, for you, Sophie, I've known you long enough now. That's a real privilege. I see in you the searcher, the spirit, the creator, the highest growth motivators of motivational mapping. So the creator is the one that seeks innovation, who identifies with the new, the fresh, the novel. You're not happy with the world as it is. You want to change it. You believe you've got the abilities to change it. I believe you've got the abilities to change it. Clients of yours have declared you've changed it for them. So there's the creator in you. Then there's the spirit that seeks freedom, independence. And making, yeah, I mean, you won't suffer fools gladly. And if somebody tells you to do something, that's like waving a red rag at a bull and saying, sit, bully, sit, sit. And then the searcher seeks meaning, making a difference, providing worthwhile value to the world. I mean, that to me, you don't even need to take the profile. If that resonates with you, I've read you.
That was actually a question I had about that. First of all, can you be more than one style? But clearly you can. But also because what we're talking about here is motivational mapping and how it's used, you know, really for careers, but you can actually use it for your own personal life as well, can't you?
Most definitely.
So first of all, you can be more than one style, but, you know, can you read people? Or do they have to take an actual test because then weird stuff comes out, like in psychometric testing, for instance?
That's a good shout, because I think the experienced motivational map practitioner will be able to recognize the three dominant styles in anybody they meet. So it's a bit like a geographer who recognizes territory and maybe the types of rock. If there were 9 types of rock, the geologist, the geographer would recognize wherever they were in the world. But in practice, they've done over 70,000 profiles now. That's a good sample size. And in practice, the experience of the leaders of the organization is that most great leaders within organizations get the motivators wrong.
Yeah.
They think they can read their staff. They might get one of the three. There's always 3. They might get one of the 3 right. They very, very rarely get the top motivator right, because we don't, you know, your stuff on your relationships, we don't communicate clearly.
Yeah.
If I say to you, Sophie, I want...
You know, if you are in a work environment with a boss and colleagues, you're probably, especially let's say at the beginning, you know, when you start a new job, you're walking on eggshells. You don't want them to see your bad points. So you're not going to start voicing and shouting about them, are you?
If my top motivator is spirit, which is I seek freedom, independence, and make my own decisions, that's not a great opener, is it?
Not really.
So I think you can recognize it once you understand the language of motivational mapping. But I do believe that most individuals are pretty in touch with what motivates them.
And in terms of the different styles, for those people listening who don't know, can you tell us what they are?
Yep. So we're doing it in 3s. There's 3 clusters of 3s, the 9 motivators. You always have 3 which are dominant. So the first group are relationship motivators. And whilst I recognize in you the growth motivators, you are such a good relationship coach. So there must be a strong element of these in you. And that's the defender who seeks security, predictability, and stability. The friend who seeks belonging, friendship, fulfilling relationships. Everybody's going to go, well, that's me. We all want that. No, you don't. Stick me in an office on my own and I go, yes, result. Can we put dark glass in the windows and bookshelves? And then and I love people. Doesn't mean you don't love people. It just means it's not my fuel.
Yeah, it's not what helps you to get better or do better, shall we say.
No, exactly. One of my friends gave me feedback the other day. I said, when I want feedback, I'll ask for it.
Yes.
Like, shut up. The star seeks recognition, respect, and social esteem. So if you think about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these are the basic levels going up to social esteem. So that's your relationship motivators. Then you've got your achievement motivators, the ones you really associate with somebody setting up in business. The director, who seeks power, influence, and control of both people and resources. Then you've got the builder, who seeks money, They really want material satisfaction, especially if it's better than a neighbour. So you've probably met people that have looked over the fence and gone, oh, they've got a patio now, I must have a patio. Keeping up with the Joneses.
But
And
funny
then the
there was a guy I used to work with. We worked together in two different companies. We kind of followed each other. We were quite a good team, really. He was in sales, I was in operations. And he was definitely back then driven by money, status, and the nice things, you know.
And what an easy motivator to satisfy.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is a clean motivator. I am at the work now. I'm at the job. Why are you doing it? Motivational mapping asks the question, why? Why are you doing this? So my favorite story was a bank manager who'd been with the bank through good times and bad times. And when she was interviewed by the coach that I knew, he said to her, why do you do what you do? Why do you do this banking all the time? And she just turned a little picture around on her desk, showing her family. She said, I do it for them. So her relationship motivators were much higher than her financial motivators, but they can work together. This is like a team thing. So the third one is the expert who seeks knowledge, mastery, specialization. My oldest son is doing his MSc as well. He wants to be Dr. McKee. So obviously I've got to beat him to that if I possibly can.
Yeah, you have to now.
And then the third group are the growth motivator. So what I said about you, this is Sophie to me, the creator, seeking innovation. Let's have something novel. The spirit, give me freedom, and the searcher, give me meaning. So if you're sitting there very, very unhappy in a job because it has no purpose, no meaning, I think I managed 2 weeks at Asda on the night shift. I was so rubbish at it. I really was. It's all timed on these computers that occasionally work, but it's your fault.
Yeah.
And you start a run and, within 2 seconds, it says you're behind. It's just like, do you want to punch? It was so out of line with my values, and yet it needs to be done. And other people saw it like a game. Yeah, come on, let's beat the computer. Da, 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 da. And they were amazing. And I was in awe of them and their focus, but not my motivator. So you stick diesel in a petrol engine, you're going to have trouble.
No, exactly. And what I was going to ask you was, so obviously we have motivators. Can we have demotivators?
I love your question. Yeah, I love it. Love my French accent too. Well, let's work through. It's so obvious, isn't it? And very, very interesting. I think you would find this fascinating because I've done some research on gender bias. Mm-hmm. And if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, the personality type, perhaps we'll talk about it.
For those who may not.
The one that most people know about is introvert extrovert.
Yeah.
So people who are energized by time alone, time in quiet. People who are energized by, let's have a discussion, go down the cafe, da-da. Good luck in COVID. See, we got on without me saying COVID. There's a gender bias in motivation as well. In the first 20,000 samples, James Sale and his wife, Linda, did some research, and there's a strong female bias towards being motivated to being the defender, which I'll read to you again. Seek security, predictability, and stability.
It makes sense if you think about going back to the cave times, which despite all evolution, you could argue we still pretty much not evolved at all from that. The woman was the hunter-gatherer. She would clean the cave, she would gather the berries, and she would make sure that everything was safe and protected, protecting the kid, protecting the husband.
I will punch a bear for you.
Exactly.
So the demotivator there is this typical time now. You think how many families where the breadwinners are going, I don't know if I've got a job in January. I don't even know if I've got a job for Christmas. And where the government's being very good with the furlough scheme. That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it? The furlough scheme. Those of us who are self-employed, who don't have a good track record of finances to prove it, where's our support? Yeah. So if your defender is high, then your motivator is going to be rocked. The friend, stick somebody who's into social relationships in isolation. They'll go bonkers. They'll lose energy. It's been like a mood hoover. The star who seeks recognition, those people who don't get thanked for doing a good job. If that's your high motivator, you're just going to go, be like a bagpipe going down. Director seeks power, influence, control, people of resources. Good luck in this day and age. If my niece, I'm longing to see my niece, who's 18 now, go into her first job because she takes no prisoners. Can you imagine somebody using 20th century management, do as you're told? To her, she's going to go, you see this middle finger? It's a really good one to dance around. Then there's the builder seeks money, material satisfaction. Yeah, difficult times for anybody motivated by that at the moment. unless you happen to be.
And yes, that pushes them further to try harder.
You've got a rubber band, haven't you? It could actually serve them if they had the right coaching, the right mentality, and the right mindset.
And talking of this, because I'm now thinking about the guy that I mentioned, he's still one of his main drivers, but because of various things that have happened, I'd say that it has changed. You know, some of the motivators that went as motivators 10 years ago are definitely motivators now, without giving too much away because I don't want people to identify him. But what I'm trying to say is it must change through life.
Yes. In a stable world, you're looking for, very unlike personality testing. Personality testing, pay your money, get a good debrief, that's it. It's unlikely to change. With motivational mapping in a stable world, it's likely to change every 18 months. It's worth doing another diagnostic every 18 months. Steve Jones did a really good example in the video I was editing today. He said, Bill Gates is now using so much of his money to squash malaria and other health issues around the world. He said, has his personality changed?
No.
No. In all likelihood, no. Has his motivators changed?
Yeah,
oh, yes. Now we're seeking meaning.
So would you say that motivation and all of that is actually a way of managing emotions to a degree, but that it goes kind of beyond emotional intelligence?
It's fascinating, isn't it? If you think emotion, to me, is always that energy in motion. If I'm angry about something, then it's an energy source I can tap into. If I'm in love with someone, it's an energy source that can get me through the day. If I feel at peace and the world around me is turbulent, I can do the duck thing. You know, I'm calm on the surface, even though my legs are wibbly wobbly. So I believe motivation and emotivation are directly linked. The nice thing about motivational mapping is you can now measure the invisible, if you think about it.
Yeah. And obviously, we're going to start with work, but then we move on to actual personal relationships. But if you think about conflict, if you've got different styles in a team at work, you've got to manage that properly because it can lead to conflict otherwise.
Yeah. So I love the whole idea of a manager.
You recognise in the first place as well.
Yeah, they'll clash with each other. It is diesel and petrol. They are immiscible, I think is the posh word. So one of the joys of being a manager rather than a leader is to be an energy supplier. I've got friends I work with in the boardroom network where we met. You know, and some of them are so high in terms of the defender and the star, technical experts. I mean, I went around the world training chief technical officers for Deutsche Bank, the back office people, who then had to manage teams.
Yeah.
Just that they did not wake up one morning and go, do you know what? I want to be an inspirational leader. They woke up and went, I hate this people thing. I've got to deal with people. You're dealing with energy.
Yeah.
So can I give that recognition to the star that needs that respect and social esteem, but also give the training course to the expert who wants to become that specialist, and give my sales manager the freedom to express their spirit?
And unfortunately, I would say that I have no stats on this. I'm probably making it up a little bit, but I'd say there's probably 80% of companies that do not look at it that way at all. And when they do things like this, they're ticking the box as opposed to taking it seriously. And that's actually what is stopping them from proper growth, as far as I'm concerned. But would you agree with that? Is it fair?
Well, you're so close. It's 81.72%.
Oh, there you go. I wasn't far off then.
I made that one up. I mean, what I love about this soap is it's so easy to sort.
But it's a little bit of investment in people, and people are always scared of that because what if they leave?
Do they really care? You know, the sort of person you compliment them on a good job and they say, well, I'm just doing my job, is alarm bells in terms of their fuel that they use. So they don't need that kind of recognition, but they might like a pay increase.
Yeah.
The fascinating thing for me is that organizations can save squillions of pounds because the assumption is, let's give them more money and they'll be happier. No, all the research says no. Once you get to a certain income level, pumping up the money it doesn't have a diminishing return. Everybody likes more money, but it doesn't have a positive impact in the sense of like it did where I can't afford to do my shopping at Sainsbury's anymore. through to, well, let's think about getting a new telly. Once you get to that stage, you're comfortable enough. These other motivators click in.
Totally.
So why do I do this? Why do I get out of bed in the morning?
In a work environment, the reason why a leader, manager would use all of this is to get engagement, purpose, productivity, performance, all these words that we hear all the time in a corporate background, shall we say. But what about personal relationships? Why would you need to know what you are to make personal relationships work, would you say?
Well, some people say anything for a quiet life.
That too, yes.
And there's another exciting element, isn't there? That bank lady that I spoke to you about, the bank manager who did it for her kids, she didn't need her job to feed her other motivators.
Yeah.
Her need for relationship was fed by her family, who was supported through her defense motivation to provide for them a stable environment in which to thrive. So, I mean, that's the beauty of the so-called work-life balance. I'm not sure how useful that metaphor is, but life is complex, and we Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and each of us plays many parts. And you don't have to have all your parts ticking all your boxes for you. Now, if somebody pays me $5,000 to turn up and do a workshop on credit control, which isn't my favorite subject, if they're paying me $5,000, I'll suck it up and do it. Thank you very much. But if somebody says, look, we're a charity, we can only afford £1,000 for you to come and talk to us about motivation, then you're sort of tapping into my desire to make a difference, my expertise, and you kind of go, don't tell anybody, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So for the person who's like listening to this at the moment, they're sat there thinking, well, I'm not really happy in my job or in my life in general. Where do I start? How does this help me?
All of these are good, if you think about it, except the growth motivators. And I might get told off by the boss on this one. But if you think about it, not everybody cares about a life of deep meaning. It doesn't mean they're not careless.
Completely.
It just means they don't give a doobry. Maybe as much as 80% of the human population. So the lower motivators, in terms of the hierarchy of needs, are not going to do anybody any harm. So look, relationship motivators to start with. If you can improve your defense, you've got more security in your life, a more stable base to operate from. That's mirroring the brain. The brain loves stability and novelty. So the searcher, the creator, the spirit. But if it loses that stability, then suddenly the desire to make a difference. I mean, I will be honest and say I've been bankrupt twice, very, very highly motivated to make a difference in the world. In the depths of the bankruptcy, I didn't give a doobry.
Yeah.
Because I was not having the money for a stamp to send a letter. You just like, boom.
Yeah.
So your motivators will shift. So I would say building a more stable platform to work from, it's all about relationships. Whether you're motivated by relationships or not, they're good for you.
Sorry, but would you say that all of these motivators to a degree, how are they affected by COVID, for instance? Because that's something that's unprecedented. And if you take someone who would be, driven by stability, there's nothing stable at the minute. We don't even know how long a lockdown is and how long, if a vaccine is going to work, if people want to be injected, blah, blah, blah. So there's degrees of questions and things. So how does that affect the motivators? Does that affect them at the core?
Massive. And that's where your three become your defenders, because you're not a single mode. If my prime motivation at the moment is defender, I'm quite likely to be majorly distressed. So just to remind you again, seek security, predictability, stability. The whole world is rocking.
Yeah.
Even if you're making loads of money because you're into personal protective clothing or something like that, there's still going to be that we don't know about the future.
Yeah.
So it would not be uncommon for somebody to have a whole cluster in one group. And that would mean that they would have the friend who seeks belonging, friendship, and fulfilling relationships. I had a gin night with some of my girly friends on Friday. It was awesome, all on Zoom. But we had a blast. We couldn't meet up face to face. We couldn't have the giggle like we normally could. We could certainly drink a whole lot more gin than we normally could because nobody was driving. So that motivator covered for the other one, just for a few hours. We forgot our troubles about Defender. And then the star seeks recognition, respect, social esteem. Lady Penelope, my responsible adult who keeps a roof over my head, God bless her, works for Asda. Can you imagine the lack of respect?
Oh God, yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt.
She's had people cough over her and say, "You've got COVID now." It's just like, exactly.
Not even start on
Take
that.
them out, take them outside and give them feedback.
Mm.
So this is a challenge of unprecedented strength for an assault on mental health that I think, and physical health, that will make our generation, but it will not be an easy path.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's something that it's not that he's going to define people, but it's not so much that, it's how they kind of kick back, isn't it? Because it's like everything, it's how you respond to it. And I think that to the degree of a lockdown was probably that kind of pause where people could take stock and process it.
Let's have a chat about the Japanese concept of Ikigai.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that you've put your finger on it there. In fact, you've put your finger on the pause button. So whether we liked it or not, and most of us didn't like it, we've been forced to press pause and go, why am I on this planet? And there is a concept in error. They reckon that it's the reason that the people in Okinawa live longer. But of course, with World War II statistics, that's not accurate. We don't know if this is the cause. But in the popular literature, they go, oh, people in Okinawa live longer because they found their Ikigai.
So explain what that is for people who don't know, please. Explain what that is for people who don't know.
It's your purpose. It's your reason for being. It's the French raison d'etre. And it's four things that overlap. So I would love to do what I love, and I've done what I love for years and have not made any money. So that's not my Ikigai.
Yeah.
That's one of the circles. Am I any good at it? That's circle number 2. Yes, I blooming well am. So I'm ticking 2 of the circles. Yeah. I told you I've been bankrupt twice, so something's not quite right. Does the world need it? Yes. So that's pretty good. Can you be paid for it? Yes, but only if you understand your marketing and your worth. And maybe the motivation comes into that as well, imposter syndrome. But let's go back to those again. If you can find an overlap between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs. I always want to sing what the world needs now. It's love, sweet love. And what you can be paid for, boom, you found a real good reason for being on Earth. You think of the wonderful Viktor Frankl in the death camps, surviving because he realized the human search for meaning. You can find meaning, and he transformed that into a therapy.
And I think the thing with that is being aware of your strengths and weaknesses. And that sounds quite simple, a fact, but actually it's true. Sometimes you don't actually realize that some of your strengths are weaknesses and vice versa, unless someone points it out to you, or whether you really do some deep searching, inner searching.
It's like the continuum, isn't it, of arrogance to confidence. A salesperson needs to be confident. They need to radiate confidence in their product. If they frame it in the wrong way, the person in the wrong space is going to go, what an arrogant, what's it? I will never do business with them. The other person could be too humble and devalue themselves, but get nowhere. So it is having that wisdom, isn't it, of multiple perspectives. I look at you, Sophie, and I see genius that's probably not being recognized for that genius. So I am seeing in you strengths that you probably have not yet seen through the window I'm looking through. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know how to kiss arse, don't I?
Yeah, you doesn't do that very well.
Can I get paid for that?
Yeah.
You know, if you and I could agree for 5 minutes on just how amazing your interventions are, because there'll be an and a plus in my perception of you, and there'll be an and a plus that you see in yourself that I've not seen yet, because I don't know you that well. I know you. I'm getting to know you better. There is a richer world. And if we can agree on that, then the world goes, yeah, we need that. And my goodness, we'll value that, therefore we'll pay for that. And you're good at it, and it's clearly something you love.
Yeah, thank you. And talking of that, how can motivational mapping help, let's say, a couple or a single person who doesn't meet anybody to a degree? How can that help them? Can you help them?
Most definitely. So one of the joys of motivational mapping is taking the invisible and making it visible, because it's a measurable system where you can measure your strengths and your aversion to some of these. So, for example, at the moment, my defender is quite low. And not sensible, not common sense, but I don't really care about all that sort of house, home, building stuff. I'm looked after.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
care.
that benefit.
I'm in care. Responsible adult, which frees me up to pursue my spirit and my creator to go and make a difference in the world. I'd give away half of what I owned if I could to buy one, give one, to make a difference in the world. And I've lost the plot there. Why are we asking that question? Individuals, right?
Individuals,
so
single people, relationships, blah blah blah.
the map shows the experienced debriefer that my defender is very low. So they could go, if we were doing motivational maps for relationships, finding a partner. I mean, let's go right down to the core stuff. If I found a partner who was strong on defender, if I respected that, we would have an amazing relationship. And guess what my partner is?
A defender. And what about, let's say you've been together for like 10, 15 years or whatever. And obviously, as you said, it evolves through life and you should get one of those done every 18 months. So how do you then get back on track, maybe, depending on how your motivations have changed?
I think if you give yourself permission not to find all the answers in one relationship, that is a recipe for such happiness. So when I explain to my partner my desires to change the world and to innovate, etc., it's just like this very understanding glaze comes over because she just doesn't get it, and she never will. Does that mean we should split up and I should go and find some hippie who wants to change the world? Well, it would be fun for 3 weeks. And then after 3 weeks, we've got nowhere to live. We've got nothing to eat. I don't fancy you anymore because we're having so much suffering. So it's about going, do you know what? I can get my satisfaction for innovation from the groups I mix with on LinkedIn. It's having that portfolio of relationships that meet all your motivational needs and not despising the ones that you're not motivated by.
Yeah. And do you think that it kind of gives you or explains to you your sense of direction? I don't know whether that's got anything to do with it, but for instance, I do struggle with limbo massively. And I think in my life, there's been probably 2 times where I've been in limbo for a number of months, like a large number of months. This particular time, it was nearly 5 years, where, not much was happening.
Not comfortable, is it?
No. So does that, like the motivational mapping in that way, does that explain it, or does that push you in a different direction or kicks your ass to do something else? How does it work?
I think it's a massive help. And I'll be honest with you and the listeners today, and I'm holding up for Sophie to see a compass. I have bought a wrist compass to wear when I go out to remind me that the compass is more important than the clock. My direction in life is far more important than the busyness in my diary. And I was awake at 2 a.m. last night, not for sad reasons, for very, very good reasons. I was thinking, what are your priorities? I don't know if you've ever seen the wonderful video of Stephen Covey talking about putting the rocks into the jar.
I've not seen the video, but I know the story.
It's a wonderful concept, folks. We can probably find the link for. I know I can find the link for you. And he puts a load of shingle in the jar, and then this lovely lady comes in and she puts her rocks in. And what's important? First things first. And she can't get them in the jar because all the little stuff is getting in the way. Then they take the same size jar, the same quantity of stuff. They put the big rocks in first, and then put the shingle in around it, and you can get it all in. It's about putting first things first. So when Covey's daughter came to him, really distressed, an entrepreneurial, brilliant girl had had her first baby. And she said, I'm just not achieving anything. And he said, of course you're not. Throw your diary away for a year. Enjoy the baby. Put first things first. And it was kind of like, phew. So I got up at 2 o'clock and I went, right, what are the 7 things which are most important to me? And I was shocked. And I'm not going to share what they are online because some people would be really miffed. But I then suddenly had last night that fresh direction. This is your direction for the next 9 months. Hold to the heading. And I know what motivates me. And it was just like, phew, hopefully I'll have some sleep tonight.
And talking of that, how does self-motivation comes into the picture of motivational mapping?
Well, this is lovely, isn't it? Because most of this, you can find an area where there's something you can control. And in times of lack of control, there's so much in our circle of concern at the moment that impacts us, but we can't do anything about. Then there's the circle of influence, which comes in a bit. There is some stuff we can influence here. We can vote for someone other than Trump.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
We better shut up about that one, haven't we? But the circle of control is the happy circle. So looking at all of these, there's something I can do with all of them. You know, I can find more meaning. I've started my course because I'm going for more expert, more of that searcher. I've got so much time freedom now, and that's good for me. Not good for many of the people listening, I understand. But it's just like, oh, I'll have that and be grateful for it. So I would almost sit down with a bullet point list and go, right, how can I get more control of my resources? How can I build a business? How can I become more of an expert? How can I strengthen my relationships? You can do something in all of this. You haven't got to wait for a magic wand. And
I think, you know, that the compass analogy that you said is actually, that's equally true as in starting a new business, work in general, or relationships. Everybody wants it yesterday.
Yes.
And unfortunately, for certain things, when we say, I can't remember what we're saying is, but something about you won't appreciate it unless you've worked hard and saved and spent a lot of time thinking about it, sort of thing. Unfortunately, that's kind of true, because sometimes what you think that you want wasn't what you wanted. You thought you wanted it, but actually isn't what you need. And people forget that because all the emphasis is on time. And it should have happened by now. This should have happened by now. And says who?
Yeah, if you shift your focus to time and direction. I mean, let's think about something you work for. I remember vividly having two copies of a dictionary that put stuff into real everyday use. It was so useful. And I found a damaged copy in a bookshop, not a secondhand bookshop, in a normal bookshop. Something had happened to it. And I negotiated for that copy. It was damaged. Then I had a brilliant new copy of it, and I gave the new copy away because I had worked for the other one. And I think something we've worked for is something we appreciate. Put a bit of love into it. Mark Knopfler, when he plays guitar, you know, without thinking about it and singing, whether you like his music or not, you go, there's a guy who's done his 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours, 30,000 hours, so that there is excellence, but you have to do the time.
And I think this is the thing. There's so many people, and especially now, you know, when you see these so-called overnight successes, and some of them, to be fair, are, especially I'm thinking YouTube makeup videos and, you know, that kind of stuff. That seems to happen overnight. But they still spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of, you know, producing content that at the beginning, there would have been like 2 views or 3 views or something. So an overnight success is never really overnight, is it?
No. It's taken me 50 years to become an overnight success, hopefully. 60 years. I follow a lot of YouTube experts who confide that what we're seeing in their YouTube numbers now has nothing to do with the journey that it's taken to get there. It's years and years of refining one's art. Seth Godin says the same thing. You ship your art. You write rubbish. And then eventually something wonderful comes out. Neil Gaiman says the same thing. You keep doing it until the right influence, and it's outside your circle of influence quite often. Somebody picks up your cause and goes, Sophie is amazing. You must listen to her. And you think, oh, I've been slogging at this for so many years. I think there's luck. I think there's good fortune. I think there's meeting the right people at the right time. But at least there's a ton of stuff we can do to become that artisan, become that craftsperson.
I think this is the thing, you know, we have control. I often talk about control in 3 weeks because it's something that I regularly question. I think we have control over the shingle to a degree when you were saying about this jar, but really we haven't. We can choose what kind of car we're going to buy, but we haven't got control about over much, even to degree success. Because if we don't tweak the marketing and everything else, as you were saying earlier, to whatever it is, it never work.
Well, the algorithms in YouTube are fascinating, aren't they? It's a robot. It's not a human being. How are you going to influence that? You need to learn the laws, the rules of the game, and play the game.
Yeah.
But what Covey's really good at is he talks about exercising integrity in the moment of choice. The last priority in my life for many, many decades was my family. And you lie, you say, I'm doing this for you. So when it comes to the decisions on time now, I have to go, who's in your top 7 priorities? And they are automatically going to be elevated to the front of the queue and get an upgrade in the ticket going forward. And until you start to go, this is what I really want in life, and I will exercise that decisiveness in the moment of choice, then it's Alice in Wonderland, isn't it? Can you tell me where to go from here? And the caterpillar says, well, where do you want to get to? So I don't know. I said, then any path will do.
Yeah.
Saying that's the path. Even if I'm wrong, I'm going to go on that path. Much easier to choose a moving vehicle, to move a moving vehicle, than to have that limbo that you were talking about that was so painful.
And on that note, what would be your parting words? Because we're coming to the end of our times. Not at the end of our times, the end of our time together. That's a bit frightening.
I'd say listen to your three best friends. Listen to your head, the logic. Listen to your heart, your emotions, and listen to your gut, your intuition. You know the truth, but there's too much noise for you to hear it. Have a nice bath, get some candles out, get some quiet, go for a walk in nature. I don't know what it's going to take to do it. Get some silence, get some quiet. Just listen.
Well, Lex, thank you again. That was fascinating as always. And for everybody else, if you've enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review. But more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.